hello. You know, it's interesting. When I think back to when I began this channel, I was so different. I really was still what they would call the last man. The man clinging to immediate gratification, a consumer, somewhat nihilistic. Nothing felt meaningful at the beginning. And I remember I had just fled the burning wreckage of my previous life in 2019, and I moved back to my parents, to a new province where they had moved. And I remember just having this mantra in my mind, thinking I want to be a beacon of light to myself and those around me. And that's when I made this channel, Last Man to Superman, because I also wanted to become the overman, that which, the man that overcomes, instead of just, because, my whole life before then, I was just a consumer, and I enjoyed the things I consumed until they started turning to ash in my mouth, as I like to say. When you just live for pleasures, they don't last, as it turns out, at least for me. Maybe you might be different. And that's not to say we should become monks. I don't think we should. I think pleasures are good. But it's like we need meaning, and that's what Nietzsche, tragically proclaimed the death of God about, because he noticed that with religion dying, the masses no longer had that spiritual meaning anymore. And he prophesied that they would become the last men who just consumed. They didn't want hard work, didn't want the hard work that it is to find meaning. And those who laughed at the idea of the overman said, you can have your overman, they said, in his Thus Spoke Zarathustra. They yelled, give us the last man, that's what we want. It was very cool to look back on the last 3 years of my life since 2019. Back then, I thought I had ADHD. I mean, I do have, I guess, what would be called ADHD, but it's not the... It's not what I thought it was. I think I did have to go through that period of being on stimulant medication, and I quite enjoyed it, because drugs are fun. And that brought me to the next level of this. Well, actually, really that started in 2020, I guess, with the 2FDCK thing, what I wanted to do with this video was just notice the changes. The biggest thing is that these walls of resistance that used to stop me from doing what I wanted to do are now mountains that move when I command them to move. They, for example, wanting to write. I would think that I would think about wanting to write, and I would imagine wanting to write, and I would imagine it not being rewarding. And so, same with taking my dog for a walk, or doing anything that wasn't immediately gratifying. And I've since learnt, I thought that was basically the ADHD thing, is things that weren't providing enough dopamine weren't possible. And to be fair, when I got the stimulant medication, that knocked down the walls too. I was able to do whatever I wanted to do. The trouble was, I kind of lost perspective, and I would just go down these rabbit holes because everything felt so meaningful and so good. And again, I feel like that needed to happen, but now I've been off of that for 8 months or so, and still, I had to go through a hardy period of resting because I went pretty hard on that stimulant medication. It took my brain through the ringer, but now, 8 months later, at first I couldn't even concentrate. I couldn't even read for 10 minutes before I would have to rest, but now I can read for hours. I'm reading chapters of books a day. And now I've started working. I started doing school. I've finished my first year of university, and now I've started working, and I got this job that requires me to constantly learn new things. I'm a property management property maintenance manager working with this company that has over 90 properties, and they're building a hotel and building a resort. And I've worked as a carpenter before. But that's my only experience in construction. But they hired me because in my resume, one of my previous jobs was a phone technician where I taught myself how to fix phones. And so they decided to hire me, thinking that I could teach myself how to fix drywall, fix vacuums, do some minor electrical work, minor plumbing work, just minor maintenance things that come up when you're managing these kind of buildings. And it isn't, I wouldn't even say it's a challenge. The only challenge is that some of it's kind of boring. And, that would used to be a wall of resistance. If it was boring, I would say that it was like moving through molasses in the mind. But now it's funny. My dad always gave the advice, you have to just do it. And that's kind of true. Like I would just, in my head, just use my third eye, my imagination for evil, basically. I would imagine it being shitty. And lo and behold, it would be shitty. And now, if I can't imagine things to be positively, I just don't imagine it. When I see myself imagining things, I see that thought form appear, I notice it and just let it go and just do it. And I've taught myself how to fix a vacuum. Like when the plug-in broke, I just YouTubed, and I didn't even watch a YouTube video, I just Googled it and saw a little step-by-step how-to guide. And you just cut off the end and buy a replacement part, and you just peel back the wires a little bit, wrap them around the little thingies inside it, and screw it on. It's pretty easy. Patching drywall, you just cut a square hole, cut a drywall piece to match, get some mud, long story short, you stick it in there and mud around it, sand it down, mud it again with a little bit of time to dry. Those are really the only complicated things, minorly complicated things I've learned so far. But in doing them, I realized video games are way more complicated. The systems you learn when you're playing games, those take way more work. The only work that's involved in working is the working itself. The fact that you have to do these 8-hour days, I think that's evil. Who came up with a 5-day, 8-hour work week? Because I tell you, by the end of my 8 hours, just by virtue of having to stand up for 8 hours, I'm not even working very hard. Just having to be on my feet for that long, I'm coming home and drained as hell. But I'm 2 weeks in. My first week, I couldn't even read after work. My brain was just so dead. But now this week I just finished, I've been reading on the bus. And coming home, I don't feel super drained, just feel a little sore. I bet next week will be even better. It's cool seeing things be overcome. And for this job, I didn't even have to shave the beard I've been growing since December. Because being a construction worker kind of person, I figured it would give me some clout in the position. And I like it. I want to see how much it can grow. And yeah, I just wanted to give a little update of what's going on. I feel like I'm much more becoming the overman, the superman. I suspect in the future, I'm so excited to get back to school in the fall, because that's only 2 days a week and maybe an hour every other day, but 2 days of classes a week, and then the rest of the time is mine, and I can't wait to have all that time back. I can't imagine the concept of having to work full-time to earn a living. What a funny saying that is, too. Work for a living. Shouldn't a living be a right? And obviously we should work too. There's things that need to be done. But I think 20 hours a week would be much more reasonable if you would just go to work for 4 hours a day, maybe. Because the first few hours, I love it. But then it's just as the hours go on, I get tired of having to walk around all day and, just tired. I think we as human beings deserve more time in our days. And I don't know why we're so obsessed with this need to get things done. I think we could slow it down a little bit, Make this money system work for us instead of us working for money. I'll think and talk more about that later. Just wanted to give a wee update. Peace.